Hello guys and welcome back to the Apex Online Racing F1 Season 15 Championship, here today for the Xbox Split 1 highlights for round number 4. And before we get started for today's video, do make sure to leave a like down below, it is always much appreciated. And also let me know down in the comments, just what your favourite part of Season 15 has been so far. And yeah, just always great to hear your guys' opinions. So last time out we were in Azerbaijan, and we saw the Flying Finn take his 10th victory in a row in the Xbox Split 1. Can he be stopped today is the question. And, well, we are at the Bahrain International Circuit for the Grand Prix today. One of my personal favourites and always a great circuit for racing in real life and, of course, in the virtual world too. So we've got 29 laps around the circuit. We've got the super soft, the soft and the medium tyres available. And taking a look at last season's results, it was a Flying Finn who took the victory ahead of Tyrrell Martin and Surprise. Surprise has actually been really good this season in the championship, and along with Evo has been the closest challenger to Finn. So will that continue today is the question. All three drivers that made it onto the Season 14 podium are competing in the race today. And the other question we've got is, can they beat that Season 14 pole time of 127.7? We will find out sooner rather than later. And without further ado, I'm going to hand you over now to Aarava, who is going to take you through the qualifying comparison.
Hello and welcome to the qualifying comparison for the Bahrain Grand Prix. This time round the shootout is between EVR Reynolds in the Force India and Drawmaster 99 in the McLaren. Both now heading down towards turn 1, trying to spot the brake zone and hit the apex as best they can. The McLaren with a slight lock-up on the front right, and ultimately through turns 2 and 3, the Force India carrying a lot more speed and momentum there as he opened up the corner in turns 2, and that's going to carry forward all the way to the end of Sector 1 as they now break down to 4th gear, both taking a similar apex but then opening up the corner on the exit. But as we pause here, you can see the Force India has already carried a few tenths ahead as they enter Sector 2 now. The fast right and then the left, both fully committed but down into the hairpin. Easy to lock up again and take a wide apex, and the McLaren does just that, locking up on the front right there as they now climb up the hill before swooping down to one of the most difficult corners in Formula 1, both trying to not lock up on the front left. But you can see McLaren there lost so much speed and scrubbed off so much momentum trying to avoid a lock-up potentially, and the Force India gains even more tense as they now go the climb up the hill now towards the end of Sector 2, and the Force India just carrying that momentum through and getting more time here as they now size themselves up for the next break point, both trying to opt for a tight corner here rather than a wider entry point. You can see apex to apex comparison, the Force India miles ahead now in Formula 1 terms, and they now go down towards the back straight and then the final corner here. The McLaren's going to opt for a very wide line to try and get the car really turned in, whereas the Force India goes over the curbing and potentially loses a fight for the front row. But it'll still be 3rd place on the road for EVR Reynolds and 14th place though for Drawmaster 99.
A massive thank you to Aarava there for doing the qualifying comparison and taking a look at the full classification. We have got the Flying Finn once again on pole position. Now Evo may have disrupted his run last race of taking the first 2 pole positions of the season, but he is back on top and alongside Surprise in P2. Of course, those two shared the podium with each other last season. In 3rd place, we have got EVR Reynolds, who you saw there in the qualifying comparison. A great qualifying from him, and he'll start on the 2nd row alongside Tyrrell Martin, who will be looking to get ahead of Reynolds and recreate that Season 14 podium. NLR Evo will be probably disappointed with 5th place, especially as he's nearly 4.5 tenths off the Flying Finn. He is, of course, the closest challenger to Finn in the championship at the moment, and just behind him is TOR Leopard in the first of the Williams. STS F1 Alonso will start in P7 and will be hoping for a good start to propel him up the field after a couple of disappointing races, and P1R Brown will start alongside him on the 4th row, with EVR Morso and Danny M7 rounding out the top 10. And now getting into the second half of the order, we've got WOR Pinecone starting in 11th in the Haas, just ahead of Veloce Limitless, who had a very disappointing qualifying and actually disconnected from the session halfway through which is one of the reasons why he is so far off the pace. Cyril Hamilton will start in 13th after qualifying on the soft compound of tyres, and he'll start on the 7th row of the grid alongside the Swede of Drawmaster, the other man who we saw in the qualifying comparison. LGS will start in P15 alongside Sam F1 LFC, and Cyril Rosberg was the last of the drivers to set a time, just 1/1000th of a second behind Sam F1. VSR Simon had a qualifying ban after starting on the wrong compound of tyres in the last round in Azerbaijan. He'll start from P18, but without further ado now, let's get into the race. Here we go then, readying up to the 5 red lights for the Bahrain Grand Prix. They're staring them down now, and away we go here in the desert. It looks like a pretty even start for the top 3, but a poor start from Reynolds, in fact. So Martin, in fact, moves up a position to 3rd and then tries to go for surprise as well. But we're looking behind now at Cyril Rosberg, who's made up a lot of positions from 17th up to 12th. What a blistering start it was for him. And Drawmaster as well, who started in 14th, went down to 16th and then back up to 14th. But at the front, it's still the flying Finn from Surprise and Martin, with EVR Reynolds and STS F1 Alonso dueling as well. NLR Evo also getting ahead of Reynolds. So it's been a poor start for the Force India man, moving from 3rd down to 6th. Another man who had a poor start was Limitless, moving from 12th down to 16th, but he goes down the inside of Sam F1 LFC and moves up into 15th. TOR Leopard qualified in P6, but has lost 7 positions on the opening lap and is now being pressurised by Drawmaster. And yes, he does. He goes wide. I'm not sure whether he's got any damage at all, but he's down to 14th. We've seen some of the losers from the first lap, but one of the big winners is Cyril Hamilton, moving up 4 positions into P9. What a start from him. Cyril Rosberg has already gained 5 positions and is now looking to take advantage of Pinecone down into turns 9 and 10. He moves up into P11. On to the start of lap 3 now, and Evo doesn't have DRS, but he's still trying to go down the inside of Alonso, and they go side by side, fighting it out for P4. Alonso takes the inside line into turn 2, but then Evo gets the inside for turn 3, just about getting ahead of Alonso, who will now be on the outside for turn 4, and it looks as if he's just been muscled out by the German Ferrari driver, and he is up into P4. What a first 2.5 laps it has been for Cyril Rosberg, and he is not done there. Hamilton gets a lot of wheel spin getting off turn 10. Rosberg takes advantage and is up into the points in P10. The Flying Finn has been nigh on perfect this season, but Surprise is looking to take the lead off the Mercedes driver. He's just 0.4 of a second away from the 3-time champion. Can he take the victory today? On to lap 7, there is still a battle between these three, Danny, Rosberg and Hamilton. Rosberg dives down the inside into turn 1 and looks as if he's got the position through turns 2 and 3, but now it looks as if Hamilton's going to come through, although he's got a penalty for corner cutting, I believe. So all that hard work that he did to try and get himself back into the battle has been undone. A lot of wheel spin on exit for Rosberg, who's now going to dive down the inside of Danny into this middle sector. They're almost running side by side. Rosberg gets the move done, and then Hamilton makes contact with Danny. Getting on to the start of lap 8, there is now a battle for the 3rd podium position between Evo and Martin, but it doesn't look like much of a battle into turn 1. Evo getting it done even before the braking zone, so pretty impressive from the Ferrari driver, but he takes a lot of curb there, and he is straight into the barriers. And that is his afternoon done for on just lap 8. He'd made such a good move after being so patient, but it'll be no points for the Ferrari driver this afternoon. On to the end of lap 8, and the first of the pit stops is being made by the front runners, and that is STS F1 Alonso into the pit lane. And now it won't be long before the others follow. After a poor start to the race for Limitless, he is going for a move on Danny M7 now into turn 8. A lovely little move from the Veloce driver, who is up solidly now into the points. As I previously predicted, a lot of the front runners have responded to Alonso and are in for their one and only pit stops of the afternoon, all going from the super soft on to the medium tyres. And it looks as if the Flying Finn is going to emerge in P6, but is still in the net lead of the race. His teammate Alonso is now trying to go down the inside of LGS, who is yet to pit. The same goes for VSR Simon, who is just ahead. But Alonso is now going to sweep round the outside into turn 9 and then into turn 10. A lovely little move from him. About half a lap down the line, we've got VSR Simon getting out the way for Alonso, but then swerves into the path of Martin. And that is not going to please the reserve driver whatsoever. And I think it's pretty clear to call that one. Martin will be fuming. Sure enough, he is passed by Reynolds for a net P4, and he comes into the pit lane for a premature end to his race. Gutting for him. Starting lap 14 now, on board with CRL Rosberg, who is going for P7 on P1R Brown, and he manages to do so, and that is 10 positions he's made up in just 14 laps now. It's been a pretty quiet afternoon for the other Sauber of Sam F1, but he's now got Cyril Hamilton diving down the inside of him for P11 in the race. A really calculated move there from the Williams driver. Going a little bit further on into the lap now, and it looks as if Pinecone is going to go for a move on Sam as well. They're running side by side through this middle sector. We've seen it so much today, but a lovely composed move as well from Pinecone, moving up to 12th. Moving all the way now to lap 20 after the field remained pretty much the same up until then. Leopard there defending the inside from Sam, who throws him the dummy and goes even further to the inside. A lovely move there from the Sauber driver back up to P12. After Pinecone and Leopard decided to pit late on in the race, VSR Simon is now closing in on Sam F1, and it's an audacious move from the Renault driver, and it looks as if he may have got it done. No, he doesn't. He slides off the track, and Sam remains in P11. The battle between these two carried on all the way to lap 24 before Simon finally goes for another move down the inside, locking his front tyres, but this time he does get the move done, and up just outside the points into P11. After all the pit stops had been made, it was Cyril Rosberg up into P6 and was now challenging EVR Morso for P5. The two of them running side by side and now getting onto the DRS. Surely Rosberg will have at least a chance at a move down the inside, or will Morso break just a little bit later? No, Rosberg goes down the inside and up into 5th. P1R Brown also managed to make his way past Morso, but as they now get on to the final lap of the race, will the Force India driver be able to close up on Rosberg? It looks as if he is within DRS range, and he's well within DRS range, and may even go for a move into turn 1, but no, he has to sit behind there. He may have been pressured early on in the race by Surprise, but it was a 3-second victory. His 4th one of the season for the Flying Finn. He really is flying at the start of season 15. Brilliant victory for him. And now going further down the order, EVR Reynolds just about goes over the line ahead of Rosberg and P1R Brown. Brilliant for them. So there you can see on the top of the podium for the 4th time this season is the Flying Finn. Now his teammate appears on the podium, but STS F1 Alonso did in fact have a penalty which was added to his final time, and as you'll see in a minute, that took him off the podium. So, as you can see, it was EVR Reynolds that moved up into 3rd position. After a poor start, he did recover for that elusive podium finish. By just under 1/10 of a second after STS F1 Alonso's penalty was added to his time. Cyril Rosberg, for me, got to be driver of the day, moving from 17th up to 5th, and just 12.7 seconds off the lead as well. If he'd have just been 7/10 quicker, which is obviously easier said than done, he would also have moved ahead of Alonso. 6th is P1R Brown, which made for a very strong weekend for Force India, with EVR more so getting a double points finish for McLaren as a result of his teammate Drawmaster finishing in P9. Sandwiched between the two of them is Danny M7, some good points for the Red Bull driver, and just getting into the points is VSR Simon in P10. Moving on to the second half of the order now, and as you can see, it was a war of attrition. CRL Hamilton, Veloce Limitless, NLR Evo and TRL Martin all not finishing. Limitless very unfortunate once again with a disconnection, because it looked like it could have been some good points for him on the afternoon of the Bahrain Grand Prix. But now getting into our final four finishers, we have got Sam F1 LFC, WOR Pinecone, who in fact made 2 stops after a little bit of a questionable strategy going onto the soft tyres earlier on in the race. His teammate LGS finished just behind him in P13, and rounding out the finishers after a pretty strong qualifying is TOR Leopard, so he'll be pretty disappointed with that. So getting on to the driver's standings, and unsurprisingly it was the Flying Finn who will stay on top of the standings and will do next round as well regardless of what happens. He's accumulated 100 points, a perfect start to the season for him. Surprise moves ahead of Evo after an uncharacteristic mistake from the Ferrari driver, so Surprise, the surprise package of the season so far. STS F1 Alonso stays in P4. The Mercedes drivers, the only ones in the top 10 to have held position. EVR Reynolds moves up into P5 after another impressive performance from him, just ahead of CRL Rosberg, who is also a big climber in the standings. TOR Leopard moves down a couple of places to 7th, with EVR more so just behind him in 8th. Veloce Limitless in 9th there, and Danny M7 just about climbs into the top 10 in 10th position. Finishing then with the constructors standings, and it is unsurprisingly Mercedes that are on top, ahead of Toro Rosso, who move ahead of Ferrari after a pointless weekend for the Scuderia. Force India are there in P4 again, so the big movers, and after a pretty poor start to the season for them, they have really come on strong in the last couple of rounds. McLaren stay in P5 just ahead of Williams, who are the big fallers in the standings, with Red Bull there in P7 and Sauber in P8 falling just behind Red Bull. And staying in P9 are Renault just ahead of Haas. But of course, all teams have scored points so far this season. So thanks once again for joining me for this Bahrain Grand Prix. And you can join me next week for the Spanish Grand Prix. Really looking forward to that one. But until next time, guys, do take care. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.